Welcome to the Happy Healthy Life Podcast with your hosts, Rob and Randy, who reveal the truth, the lies, and confusion about health so that you are no longer the victim to mainstream medical dogma and you are the hero to your own happy, healthy story.
Hello and welcome back to the Happy Healthy Life Podcast with your host, Rob and
Randy.
And we are
The Happy Healthy Guys.
We are.
Yes.
So welcome back to another episode of the Happy Healthy Life Podcast. You know what? Today we're going to talk about why a lot of you have been struggling to lose weight. Why it is that, in the midst of you've tried everything, you've done all the things, you've done all the diets, you've done all the stuff, and you're still struggling to be able to lose weight and it just won't come off. This is going to be an episode for those of you who have been following us for a long, long time. You know the answers to these problems right here. However, you've got a friend and they're struggling. This is going to be an episode that you're going to want to share with your friends, your family members, so they can understand how to be able to overcome their weight loss struggles and finally lose the weight and keep it off forever. So if there's anything that we are great at, we're great at helping people overcome this struggle with losing weight.
Yeah, we are great with that. We are definitely not great in a lot of other things, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I'll be the first to admit I'm not great at relationships. So I need to change the narrative or the story I keep telling myself, but no doubt about it.
I disagree. You're great at communicating. You're great at connecting. You're great at relationships. I think you're just, I think you may just be talking about relationships, like partner relationships.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about more of an intimate relationship where,
great at relationships.
That is true. That is
connection.
True. Maybe it's just not the right woman yet, but I digress. But it's kind of like our friend Dr. Helu over in Spain, the doctor that we've learned so much from, that we've worked with, that a lot of our new Happy Healthy for Life clients are going to be working with as well. But I remember him saying years ago, he goes, you've got you got surgeons, you've got nutritionists, you got endocrinologists, you've got oncologists, you've got all these different professions. He goes, let them do that. He goes, because that's not what I do. I'm great at helping people heal their not their metabolism, but help heal from a cellular level. So it's really knowing what you're great at and then just owning that and just beating that drum. And we've been beating this metabolic drum, man, for almost 15 years. We were probably beating it off tune before that, but really got this thing dialed in because you're really taking on a real issue, which is more people right now are struggling with their weight than ever before. And I think it goes back to the quality of the questions that you ask determines the quality of the result that you get. And in my opinion, the problem with the question they're asking is they're asking, how do I lose weight?
They are asking, how do I lose weight? And that right there is part of the traditional weight loss story. So if you are that newer person, this story is probably going to sound like you because it was me. It's like, you don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I got to lose weight today.
Right.
It's typically one of those things that
it can feel like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it just happens like over time. It's like, you're like, I probably shouldn't be eating this, but I'm going to eat it anyway. And the next thing you know, you're, a couple of pounds heavier. And you're like, I'll just get that back a few days from now by decreasing the amount that I'm eating. And
Right.
The next thing you know, your clothes just don't fit you anymore. Now you're really motivated to want to lose weight. For me, I was absolutely motivated, not by health reasons. I was motivated by, at that time, I was 13 years old. I weighed 210 pounds. I was shopping in the Husky section of JCPenney, which if you've ever been there too, this is, I saw you write that, Margie, and this is like a confessional. The confessional back then was that if you were buying, my waist at that time was a 36-inch waist. And if you're buying 36-inch waist pants, the length of the pants is like 36 also. And so
you don't have long legs
at all. I have legs like a chihuahua. okay, or like a corgi, right?
You
So,
were the
that's the
corgi.
corgi.
Oh gosh.
So you got these.
I love corgis.
I
They're
love
the
them.
sweetest
I
dogs
love
ever.
them too, but
Yeah.
not when they're the legs on my body. And so I got these little legs. So my mom used to always have to like hem my pants for me. And what I hated was the hem on the bottom of my pants didn't look like the 501 Levi jeans that everybody else was. Like it was like a different color.
Yeah.
I remember it was like the cording of the pants was like a gold color, and mine were baby blue because that's like the thread that my mom had, right? To be able to hem the pants. And so I was always embarrassed about that. So all I say is I was motivated by not having to shop in the Husky section anymore. And so what I did is like a lot of people, is you just do what everybody else is doing. Back to my mom, and nothing against my mom because I absolutely love my mom, and she was trying to do the best
Yeah.
with what it is that she knew at that time, and that was how to go on a diet. And so she was always on whatever the latest fad diet was at that time. And whether it was like the boiled egg diet or the cabbage diet, the whole house would
Oh
stink, or
gosh.
linguines, or
Nothing
any of those things.
like cruciferous vegetables cooking on the stovetop. There's nothing worse.
Disgusting. I'm like, you know
Just
what? I'm like, that sounds nasty to me. You know what's a lot easier than that? Just don't eat. So that's
Yeah.
what I did, is I just didn't eat.
Yeah.
So I would literally go 5-6 days out of the week and wouldn't be eating. And I could remember, like, if I was going to eat, the one thing that I would eat for the week, I would have my one thing. And I don't
This
even
ought to
know,
be good.
I don't even know that you know this. So my one thing would be,
Pop-Tarts.
you're close. It wasn't Pop-Tarts.
Mm.
It was those little pocket pizzas.
I do know about the pocket
The
pizzas.
pocket pizza, and
Yeah.
then you
What
had
were they
to
called?
Hot Pockets.
Hot Pockets.
Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
And you had to put like the silver thing around it in the microwave to be able to make sure that it was crunchy for, back in the microwave days. So that's what I would eat. That would be my one thing. And I would just savor that sucker because the one thing that I was going to eat. And so I went from 210 pounds all the way down to 124 pounds
Wow.
in about 5 months.
That's insane.
It is insane. It didn't make me healthy. I was literally skin and bones. I was thin. I wasn't healthy, almost died because of it. That's a whole different story. But I only say that to say is that's the strategy that most people are using.
So that was a diet. Because all diets have what in common?
Yeah, you lose weight and then you gain it back.
And you just cut calories for the rest of your life. It's just somehow eating was a sin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And then that began my lifelong struggle with trying to be able to lose weight. And so because of that, that's why I was already a personal trainer before I graduated from high school, because I wanted to be perfect with my exercise. I needed to be perfect with my nutrition, and I always had to be perfect with those things in order just to be able to maintain a healthy weight. It literally had taken over my whole psyche, right? So with all the things that go along with that, I would be like, I would wake up in the morning and go, okay, I'm gonna have to work out at this time. This is what I'm gonna be eating, and that was what filled my mind from the second that I woke up in the morning, literally throughout the entire day. And so it wasn't until and this even was going on when I was in chiropractic practice. And so here we are, as a doctor, you're teaching everybody else how to lose weight, utilizing the same strategies that we had learned growing up our entire lifetime. And, some of them were getting better results even than I was. But what would always happen back then is as soon as they would stop doing whatever it is that they were doing, they would gain the weight back. And I was struggling with the same exact
same, the irony,
problem.
right?
The irony of that, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed. And then
but here's the truth of the matter, Dr. Rob, is remember all of these are myths really about health and about weight that have been baked into us since we literally hit planet Earth. And these same strategies are still being taught and utilized today by a lot of smart people, a lot of other doctors, health care practitioners, nutritionists. It's still being taught, and it all goes back to we were just asking the wrong question. We were asking, okay, I'm overweight. How do I lose the weight? Which is really, the weight is the symptom, right? And if you know anything about treating symptoms, if you don't get to the cause, the problem that was creating the issue is still there. And like anything else, if you don't fix it, it gets worse. So the problem that you had growing up and the reason you struggled was never addressed. In fact, it kept getting worse, which is why the weight issue really followed you into adulthood and really up until about 15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And then what happened 15 years ago? How in the world did we
Yeah.
learn about how to be able to heal and fix your metabolism? It happened in a way that I could have never expected that that's the way it was going to be able to help me. It literally was something that came out of completely left field.
I literally hope that's what you weren't hoping that was how we were going to solve this with
No,
the
not at
cancer.
all. No, I was
Right.
not at all. I
Yeah.
had no idea that that's how I was gonna be able to overcome that.
No, and clearly I would have thought I would even been in that situation too. For those of you, who know or don't know the story, I was diagnosed with a late stage cancer diagnosis in July of 2010, and rock bottom moment. And for me, I wasn't the kid who struggled with their weight, but there were a lot of signs and symptoms looking back on it now that I can identify as a real metabolic issue. So one of my issues that I kind of never thought was a problem was I always had to eat about every 2 hours. Do you remember that
I
about
totally
me?
do. You were eating all the time because I was always pissed off because I'm like, I wish I could eat that much and not have to worry about gaining weight.
Well, it wasn't because I wanted to eat that much. It's because literally, if I didn't eat about every 2 hours, my blood sugar would drop, and I would be that hangry person, that hungry, angry person. So just like I wasn't a good person to be around, and since I didn't want to be an a-hole, I was snacking and eating every 2 hours to bring my blood sugar back up. So that had me eating about 6 times a day, sometimes even 7 times per day to literally stoke the fire, quote, and to make sure to keep my blood sugar stable. So looking back, that was a real metabolic problem because if you can't go 4, 5, 6 or more hours without eating, without a blood sugar crash, you are metabolically sick. Didn't know it at the time. In fact, I'd bought into that lie that, hey, you need to eat multiple times a day in order to have a fast metabolism, when the data suggests that, thermogenesis, which is when you eat, there's an increase in temperature, you burn more calories. There is a food impact, but if that was the case, then everybody should just be eating 8, 10, 15, 20 times a day and we'd all be thin. Yet we already know that doesn't work that way. The data doesn't support anybody eating more than 2 to 3 times per day for metabolic health. So I look back, I basically was a pre-diabetic. I
Mhm.
wasn't overweight, but clearly I was seriously metabolically sick. And I just didn't think anything about that up until really my cancer diagnosis, where I began to, examine everything in your life. When your life crumbles in front of you, you really start to assess, or you should assess, what am I doing wrong? So when I was over in Spain, started noticing a lot of things that were different as I was going through protocols, as I'd gotten out of my stressful life, which probably was half of the healing process, if we're going to be honest, and looking at how people eat, what they eat, how many times a day they eat, a lot of changes began to happen. But it really takes us back to what we said earlier, that if you're listening and watching us right now, and you're struggling with your weight, you need to stop asking, how do I lose weight? You want to start asking, how do I heal my metabolism? How do I get to the cause of the problem? But because for me, when I was diagnosed, I wanted to get to the cause of the problem. And by asking, how do I get to the cause? That led me to a real solution and getting introduced to a doctor there in Spain, Dr. Raymond Helu, which started the journey of diving into the science of metabolism, looking at what does that really mean and how do we actually now impact people in a whole new way. And thank God, the biggest blessing of all, my best friend who was 65 pounds overweight. Now I'm not dead and you're not overweight. And that's how the happy, healthy journey began. So it is crazy how we got here, but it goes back to help people today. It's really about getting to the cause of the problem. If you don't address the cause, you'll always struggle with whatever issue that you're struggling with. The cause is the cure. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, which is why, and it's incredible to really, as we look back and see everything that we've learned, even to date,
Yeah.
because when I would think of metabolism back then, I only looked at metabolism as being, okay, people are blessed with a really great metabolism, or people are cursed with a really bad
Yeah. It's
metabolism.
very binary,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
very binary. And so I would be like, oh, that person, they have a really fast metabolism. I used to think that, you know what? I wish I would have got my dad's metabolism because my dad was super thin his entire life, could eat whatever it is that he want. I'm like, unfortunately, I got cursed with my mom's metabolism,
Mm.
and that's why I struggled to be able to lose weight until when we started looking at the science of it and looking at the research. What the research shows is that, you know what, genetics is only a tendency 1 to 2% of the time.
Yeah.
And so that was good news though for me at that time because I'm like, wow, okay, so then that means that 99% of the time, if we know what caused it to not work, then we can be able to fix that or we can be able to overcome that. And so I'm like, okay, so you're saying there's a chance,
There is a
right?
chance.
So if you've ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber,
A million times at this point, I do confess, and I
I
am
love that
not
part. So you're
ashamed.
saying that there's a chance.
They're saying there's a chance, but you know,
Yes.
you think about there is a chance, but how do you know if you're going down the wrong road? There's really four things that a lot of people believe that are myths, that if they believe this is why they struggle, that they are trying to work on their weight, the symptom, versus working on their metabolism, which is the cause. What would you say the number one myth that everybody believes that you have to do in order to deserve to be at a good, healthy weight?
Is that you've got to eat better. You've got to eat good. You've got to rely on your diet to determine what it is that you weigh. Heck, the first three letters in that word right there is what I knew to be true by doing all these diets. DIE spells die.
Not good.
Not good. That's the first red flag
Yeah.
that's probably not the right answer. And so that's why even at a very young age, I can remember being 14, 15 years old, going, okay, now at that point I know, okay, restricting calories is not the answer because I almost died. So maybe I need to eat better foods. And so
Just got to eat better.
yeah, so I got rid of all the ice cream out of the refrigerator, got rid of all the chips, all the sodas, all the sugar, all those things in the house. And that there was like, yes, is eating better quality and putting better nutrients into your body better?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's vital.
absolutely. But it's still not the answer to healing your metabolism because all I was doing really was just still relying on caloric restriction. So here's the thing, if diet was the answer, because you know people who eat way worse than you and they're thinner than you,
You got it.
okay? Meanwhile, if you're listening to this and for the first time or you're struggling with your weight, you're trying everything. You're being perfect. You're cutting out, you're not eating the bread at the restaurant. You're not eating the chips and you're still struggling. Or you've been cutting all those things out. And the second that you eat the bread or you eat the chip, then you end up gaining weight. You know, the struggle is real. It's frustrating because you haven't addressed the cause and you're not getting to your metabolism. Diet is not the answer. If it was, then everybody who ate good would be thin and everybody who ate bad would be overweight. It's not the answer.
No, it's not. And so my question is, does eating bad make that person thin? And does eating good make that person overweight?
Nope.
Clearly not. And so a lot of you, you know, you probably beat yourself up and you're like, you know, if I just had more willpower, right? And I stayed out of the bread tray. And what do we know about willpower, Dr. Rob?
It will eventually let you down.
It totally
100%.
will. So, you know, we're not saying don't eat right. Clearly, if you followed us and know anything about what we do and how we live and what we teach, real food nutrition is vital, but it's really not the answer when it comes to healing your metabolism. It may work with a little bit of weight loss, but when you're not perfect, it does come back, which really leads into the second myth that a lot of people believe controls what they weigh. Because if you're not focused on your metabolism, this is where you'll land. It's the eat less, which is the diet, and then it's the move more. So you got to eat less food to lower your calorie consumption. And now you got to burn more calories to continue to lower that number. And what's crazy is I mean, I don't know if people know this, but it takes 3,500 calories burned to lose 1 pound of body fat.
You know what you got to do in order to lose that many calories?
Yeah, and it sounds horrible. It's a 34-mile walk. Listen, I love to walk. I walk every day, but 34 miles to burn 3,500 calories, that's like 10,000 steps, 8 hours a week on the treadmill. Ain't nobody got time for that.
No.
I mean, come on, man. And a lot of people that are overweight, their joints hurt. They don't have the energy. It's really an impossible ask for them.
No, I mean, hey, look, you guys, I've got this measurable right here to be, and it measures the steps that I take every day. And oh my gosh, if they would have had these things back then, in order to be able to lose 1 pound of body fat, I would have thrown this thing in the trash. It'd be freaking depressing to be
Yeah,
able to get up to, because what that ends up being is a minimum of 10,000 steps walked per day
yeah,
for 7 days in a week. That's 70,000
right.
steps. And that's just for 1 pound, only if you're not eating, because if you were eating, that'd be putting more calories in, and that would be more steps that you would need to burn off those calories.
Yeah, and the irony is your metabolism, which controls what you weigh, has to adapt to the extra burn calories and the calorie restriction so it doesn't get higher, much like it gets lower. And a lot of you who are the chronic dieters, you're living in the gym, you're beating yourself up, you're trying to be this perfect person. It does not work. It's going to make you worse on not even just the physiological stress, but the mental abuse that you give yourself. So we all know people who don't exercise and are thinner than you. We know people probably like you who are, you are exercising, you are working out, yet you still can't budge. So clearly, if exercising solved this problem, everybody who exercised would be thin. So not exercising doesn't make somebody thin, and exercising does not make somebody obese. The eat less, move more strategy is a complete fraud. It has us more sick now than ever before. In fact, this played out on national television, Dr. Rob. Talk about that show that everybody knows about, because this played out for millions of people to witness and observe. And we actually have the data on that reality show.
We do have the data. We looked it up. The show, if you can guess, is called The Biggest Loser Challenge. And so they basically just took all these people and they sequestered them into these people that wanted to participate in losing weight, put them in a house. They fed them the foods that they were going to feed them per day. In other words, what they did is they restricted their calories. So they couldn't even eat if they wanted to, because the food wasn't even in the house for them to
Right.
be able to eat. And then they took them to the gym and they exercised them like crazy. What a lot of people don't know is they took 16 of the participants. And by the way, there is no reunion show, and we're going to show you why there's not a reunion show. Is when they looked at these 16 participants, they said, okay, we want to assess these people when they go in, and then we want to assess them again 6 years later to follow up and see how that worked out for them. Now, of the 16, only 14 participated in the follow-up. And I would imagine that there were the two that didn't participate were probably two that the reason they didn't was because they gained the weight back.
Yeah, those are the non-compliant, quote, non-compliant contestants, right?
Yeah, I'd like to believe that that's why. Hopefully those two people are still alive and didn't die or something. Who knows? But anyway, so 14 left. Of the 14 people that they showed, they showed that 6 years later, every single one of them, their resting metabolic rate went down.
Wow.
Their metabolism got even worse. And of the 14 people, every single one of them gained the weight back.
So for those of you listening at home, what you just said was long-term caloric restriction coupled with daily exercise made their metabolisms worse.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So if that's the results that you want, is to have a 100% likelihood of your metabolism getting worse by cutting your calories and by exercising like crazy. And we're not saying don't eat right, don't exercise. Those
Right.
are good for your health, but to determine your weight, ain't the right thing. I always say, by all means, keep on doing what it is that you're doing. If you want to continue to keep on yo-yoing, going up and down and up and down and struggling like that and literally feeling you're on that proverbial weight loss treadmill, go right ahead. I just don't like that strategy, not for myself anyway.
No, and I listen, we love to eat right. We love to exercise. What happens is because of this mindset is you start using it inappropriately. You start using food to lose weight. You start losing exercise or using exercise to lose weight. That's not what food and exercise are for. They're to nourish your body, to give your body bioavailable, nutrient-dense nutrition, to help with your circulation, to help obviously improve brain function, to keep your body mobile and active. All the benefits. I mean, you can't argue the benefits of real food, nutrition, and exercise. But what happens is in this weight loss world, with all the diets out there and all the exercise programs, people have they beat themselves up. They it's just nothing works. And even though they're committed to doing those two things, they still can't get the result. So maybe it isn't your fault, right? Maybe it is your metabolism. Maybe it's not because you're not perfect enough. Maybe it's not because you don't live in the gym. Maybe something's really wrong metabolically, which was really the revolution that we had all those years ago, which cancer wasn't making me sick. I was already sick metabolically, which is why my body was breaking down. You didn't have a weight problem, Dr. Rob. You had a real metabolism issue that needed a real metabolism correction solution, which is why we started the program that we started. So the diet and the exercise thing really have a lot of people duped and frustrated and hurting more than ever before. And then you even go into the other two myths, really, which if you believe these, you're really screwed because we've been told that, hey, you're getting older. And so, well, that's just what happens when you get older. Well, I'm glad nobody told me because I am 50 years young and I'm in incredible shape, as good a shape as I've ever been in my life. That is not hyperbole. Anybody who knows me or is around me or gone to the beach with me knows I am lean, in shape, muscular, fit, low body fat, not because I'm a genetic freak or not because I'm 50, but because I really understand metabolism. But the age thing is interesting because what can you do about your age, Dr. Rob?
Not one thing.
Aren't you older now, right now, than you've ever been in your life?
Absolutely. And I'm older now than when you even asked the question.
Exactly. Every second you're getting older, yet I've known you for over 20 years and you are in just impeccable shape and probably, and I didn't know you back in your teenage and college years, but probably even better than you were even 25 years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My 18-year-old self would have killed to be able to be in the shape that I am right now.
Yeah, so the age thing is such a myth. In fact, one of the largest studies ever published of its kind was done not that long ago, released at a Duke University, Dr. Herman Ponzer. They took on the question, does your metabolism slow down as you age? Now, is that common that it happens? Yes, but it's not normal. Here's what the study showed, that obviously when you're born, you have a rock star metabolism, and that metabolism is at its peak really up until the age of 1 year old. But by the time you hit 1 year old, up until the time that you're around 18, your metabolism actually starts to slow down just a little bit. Interesting. But by the time you hit 18 or 20, for the next 40 plus years, your metabolism doesn't change even 1%. It stays the same. So turning 30, 40, 50 or more, your metabolism doesn't change. And even over 60, they showed it would only drop maybe 7% every decade, but that's only true if you're metabolically unhealthy. So here's what the research is saying is you already have a strong metabolism. The goal is not to try to fix it, it's to find out what's breaking it down and what is wrong with it, which is going back to, you got to ask the right question. Stop asking, how do I lose weight? Start asking, what is wrong with my metabolism? What is breaking it? And now how do I focus on that? Because there is no time machine. So if you're hoping to go back to your younger self to fix this problem, that is not going to happen. And here's what really ticks me off is doctors blame this issue on our age all the time. What do they tell us when you go see them? Well, Rob, you're just getting older, which is a permanent defeating victim mindset. Stop being a victim of your age. You have got the ability to have a strong metabolism no matter what age you are. That is the true story. So if it's not diet and exercise and it's not genetics, or excuse me, it's not age, then it has to be something else. And then finally, what's the last piece to this puzzle? This is a huge, huge myth. And I know you used to believe this one.
Yeah, you just said it. Right. So it's your genetics.
Yeah.
And so they say that it runs in your family, which is the one that I used to believe because I watched it with my mom, same person we talked about earlier, who was chronically always on a diet. I'm like, well, if she's going to have this lifelong struggle with always being on a diet and always going and trying all these fad exercise programs and diets and supplements and all those things, I'm going to need to do those things because it's my mom, right?
Yeah.
And so that's also the same thing when you go to the doctor, is they say, hey, do you have a family history of people being overweight? Well, me being Latin, the answer for most of these Latin folks is going to probably be yes. Okay. Especially if you grew up in San Antonio with some really good Mexican food down there. So I just thought that this was what was supposed to happen. And so
And what a
here's
lazy answer,
it
by
is,
the way, when some healthcare professional goes, yeah, you're just getting older, it runs in your family, as if there's anything you can do about that.
yeah, and most of the time the doctor that says that is lazy himself and is overweight also.
Yeah.
And they don't have any solutions other than to give you medication at that point, right? And so and then when they tell you you've got a thyroid problem, and then they give you thyroid medication, and when is it that they tell you to stop taking the thyroid medication?
Well, never.
Yeah, because they know that it's not getting the cause either. Not a good outcome doing it that way. However, well, once we learned the science of healing metabolism and started doing the research, what we found is the research said that having a metabolic problem, okay, is only a tendency. You
Yep.
guys got that? A tendency. 1 to 2% of the time, which means that 98 to 99% of the time that you could overcome it. And even if you were part of that 1 to 2%, if you study,
And you're talking about genetically, if they blame it on your genetics. Yeah.
exactly. Because then you have that person that's like, nope, I'm for sure than that 1%.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, when they study epigenetics, what they show is that, yeah, even if it was a tendency, that's like having like a loaded gun, which is only dangerous if you pull the trigger.
Exactly.
So with epigenetics, they were saying if you're living these certain lifestyles, or because your lifestyle isn't supporting having a healthier body, a healthier system, then that's like now loading the gun and pulling the trigger of the gun. That's why you now have an issue. So that's good news, because that tells you that you can be able to overcome it, but you have to first know, like you were saying earlier, okay, what broke it? What caused this? What
Yeah.
caused this problem? Here's the thing. I didn't come out of my mom's womb, or it came out of a different part of her body, but I just don't even want to think about that. But when I came out, I didn't come out like 20 pounds,
No,
right?
no.
So I was little bitty when I came out. I was thin. I go back and look at photos of myself from when I was a little kid, and I was really thin.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I was in about the 3rd or 4th grade where
Yeah.
you go back and look at these photos and I was heavier or overweight. It's not something, it didn't happen just overnight. Something broke with my mom. She wasn't always overweight. I remember seeing photos of her from her wedding day. My mom was 98 pounds. She got married when she was 19 years old. And I remember having the conversation with her. I'm like, hey, you didn't used to always struggle with your weight. You didn't used to always be like this. And
Yeah.
she's like, no. And I'm like, well, what do you blame it on? And she pointed at me. She goes, I blame it on you. She's like, I didn't ever struggle with my weight until I had you. So then she
Right.
was that person that was taught that,
Totally.
okay, it's got to be a hormone problem, or as if kids are the cause of weight gain, right?
Yeah, yeah, we know plenty of women who've had children that are thin, and plenty of women who have never had a child and are overweight. All goes back to all the disqualifiers and the
Totally.
limiting beliefs that we adopt over time and that we keep telling ourselves,
That story.
which keeps us from actually getting to a real solution. And the truth of this is none of those things are why you're struggling. It's not because you're not perfect with diet and exercise. It's not because you're whatever age you are, and it's not because you got some bad poker hand with this genetic lottery thing. In fact, we'd have been out of business a long time ago, because some of our best clients and one of our larger demographics that we work with is that 45 to 65-year-old female who has had children, right? Who obviously has done diet and exercise programs before, but we're not testing their genetics. It's not like you have to have elite genetics to work with us. That ruled us out. And we definitely aren't working with, 17-year-old girls. We're working with people that they're telling us you're too old or you've got bad genetics, yet magically, once they heal their metabolism and learn what that looks like, they're able to lose the weight and keep it off. So, if you still believe in perfect dieting and exercise and age and genetics, then you're going to have to eat perfect the rest of your life. You're going to have to work out every day for hours a day. You're going to have to get into a time machine, and you're going to have to pick different parents. None of that is possible because it's not the real reason why you struggle. Stop asking, how do I lose weight? If you're struggling, start asking, how do I heal my metabolism? Because once you know how to heal your metabolism, it's very easy to manage your weight. You burn thousands of calories a day just sitting there. But if your metabolism is broken, it doesn't matter what you do. In fact, you can starve yourself At the end of the day, when all the dust settles, after all the diets have failed and all the exercise and the supplements and the medications and all the guilt, when it all settles, you're right back where you were or worse. So, Dr. Rob, what would you say for anybody listening who wants to really go dive deeper and get to a real solution metabolically? What would you say to them?
So here's what I would say is the next thing is you need to test. Stop guessing and know why your metabolism isn't working. Because once you know why your metabolism isn't working, when we work with people one on one, is we know exactly what's causing it. So we have them actually assessed. So we assess to find out what it is that's causing their metabolic issue, because that way we can customize a plan that's specific for them.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
so once they have that, they can, all they literally need to do is just follow those steps. It's telling them, okay, here's the foods that are most metabolically healing for your bad metabolism. So they eat those in a way that we do that's really simple. It's easy to be able to follow, but it's not until we assess. But one of the things that we did, if you're wondering if you do have a metabolism problem, to be able to help you figure that out, is if you go to metabolismscore.com, there's a quiz there, and that quiz is going to let you know if you do, in fact, have a metabolism problem. And if you do have a metabolism problem, it'll give you steps on the things that you need to be doing now in order to be able to help you to be able to overcome that problem right there. So you may be wondering, I don't know if I do have a metabolism problem. Well, you don't have to wonder anymore. Just go to metabolismscore.com and take the quiz to be able to see if it's, it could be a metabolism issue.
Yeah, no, pretty simple. Metabolismscore.com. What is your score? Winners know the score. A lot of you already probably know, your metabolism isn't working, that something changed. Some of you may have had a great metabolism when you were younger, that something broke it. It reminds me of, my brother Ryan. He started struggling with his weight once he got out of high school. He was thin all as a kid, all the way through high school. And then when he graduated high school, things began to change. There were some challenging things he was going through. My father had died. There was an emotional stress. I think a lot of the things that were breaking Ryan down metabolically, he fell back into the same trap of trying to be perfect with diet and exercise all the time. And at some point, when that no longer works, you just quit and you just get frustrated. And so Ryan, unfortunately, gained 100 pounds by the time he was 27 years old, and tragically passed away from a massive heart attack. Just gut-wrenching, losing my youngest brother Ryan at 27 years old, 100 pounds overweight. And what's really even sad is, that this is what we do for a living. And some of you may be asking, well, why couldn't you help your own brother? And trust me, I've gone back a million times, like, what could I have done different? But at the end of the day, you can't help people who don't want to be helped. And unfortunately for Ryan, he really didn't want the help. He really didn't want to do anything he could do to fix his metabolism, because he'd really bought into that whole lie that you got to be perfect with your nutrition, and it's just a lack of exercise. And so that's why we've not been able to help everybody over the years, Dr. Rob, but we can definitely help the people who want the help. Ryan's story is a cautionary tale, but the point is, he didn't have a bad metabolism his whole life. Something broke, something changed. Some of you may feel like you've had a bad metabolism really since you were born, but the studies would say that it's not a metabolism that you were cursed with a bad metabolism. Something broke that. Something's in the way. Something's breaking that down. So I would encourage all of you guys, if you feel like your metabolism is struggling, if you feel like something's broken, if you feel like, you're really sick and tired of starving yourself and living in the gym and trying to beat yourself up, like, if I wasn't lazy and went to the gym more, then I would deserve to be at a good weight. Or if I had more willpower and I stayed out of the bread tray, then I'd be at a good weight. It's not it. Stop asking, how do you lose weight? Start asking, how do you heal your metabolism? The right questions will get you to the right solution. I think metabolismscore.com is a perfect place to go. So we are here to help. So
Yeah, and then past that, what you really need, even after that, if you find the score, is you need accountability, you need support. You need somebody who has been where you're at, somebody who knows how to be able to heal the metabolism.
yeah.
You know what? We went through what it is that we went through so that we could be able to be your guide, your Sherpa, so to speak. You're not going to climb Mount Everest. If you know anything about what Sherpas do, they help these people who have never climbed Mount Everest. And sometimes your weight problem feels like a Mount Everest that you're trying to
Good
climb.
analogy. Yeah.
And so you've got to have somebody to be able to help you who knows how to get there, what to do, who has the answers to all of your questions. I was watching one of my favorite shows. My guilty pleasures is watching a show called The Amazing Race. You ever seen that?
I've never watched it.
So The Amazing Race, basically, you don't need to know all about the show. It's just
I'm familiar with the concept.
yeah. These people are traveling all over the world, and it's like a contest to get to one destination. You might be flying from Dallas, Fort Worth to India, for example.
Okay.
And so they had to change the rules on the show. And the reason they changed the rules on the show is because they had this couple that was winning all of the stages. And here's what the couple was doing, because you weren't allowed to use your cell phones, because you can't like be calling people and using the GPS. And so as soon as they would land at the new destination, they would get somebody who was a local to hop in the car with them.
Smart.
They would be in the back seat and having the local tell them all the different places to go. See, so they had the secret weapon, which was a guide. I feel like we are the secret weapon to be able to help people as they're going through their metabolic journey, because they just don't even know what questions they don't even know that they have.
You don't know what you don't know.
We've answered the questions. So that's why we do what it is that we do. That's why we've got these amazing folks right here that have gone through the program, got the results. And so, we made it simple. If you're listening to us for the first time, go to then metabolismscore.com. If you're struggling, let us help you. Let's find out what's going on. See if you do have a metabolism problem, and then we'll guide you. We'll guide you from there. So if you are somebody who has been listening to the show for a while, you may even be in our program. You may be one of our ambassadors of the program. This is going to be a show that you want to share with people that you know who may be struggling, because it's going to answer the questions as to why it is that they have been struggling and haven't been able to overcome that weight loss struggle.
Yeah, no doubt. Well said. You're best equipped to help the person that you used to be. So we have been there. We've done that. We have spent the time, the money, the energy, and we've made it so simple. So love you guys a lot. Thanks for tuning in to the Happy, Healthy Life. Remember, you're not broken. God made you whole. Your body's already healed. The goal is to stop interfering in metabolism. Having a strong metabolism is the normal. Disease, sickness, chronic disease, obesity, those are things that are not normal. They seem normal because they're so common, but they're not. And we're here to help guide you. We love you. We appreciate you. Dr. Rob, thanks for all you do, my friend. Thanks for being my best friend, my business partner. Thanks for helping me get through all that I went through all those years ago. But we can look back on it now and know that God had a bigger plan. So very thankful for that.
True story.
Yeah.
Love y'all.
Love you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Happy, Healthy Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow them on Instagram at the H2 Life, or on YouTube and Facebook at the Happy Healthy Guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.